Most of us work hard, but often on the wrong stuff. It's a bit ironic because organizations exist to provide some kind of value to customers, yet too often they don't have a clear understanding of who these customers really are or what they need. Now, let's have ourselves a pocket-sized pep talk because today's guest says what's needed is a system that, above all else, considers customer behavior, and he's here to tell us more.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jolles.
Today's guest, Jeff Gotthealth, has worked with hundreds of organizations as an individual contributor, leader, founder, and consultant. A software designer turned coach, consultant, and speaker, he's helped organizations fuse strategy, become customer-centric, and utilize evidence-based decision-making to become more agile, make better products, and achieve greater success. Now, along with his co-author, Josh Seiden, he's written 2 previous books. Their new book is Who Does What by How Much? A Practical Guide to Customer-Centric OKRs. And we're going to clear that up in a hurry, so don't worry. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Jeff.
It's great to be here, Rob. Thanks so much for having me.
You bet. And it's really nice to have you too. He's coming in from Barcelona, so it's rare my guest is hours ahead of me. They're usually behind, but welcome aboard. I want to start immediately with the OKRs.
Sure.
I know what it means because I've been researching you, but tell the audience what you mean by OKR.
Sure. OKR stands for Objectives and Key Results, and it's a goal-setting framework. It's a way for companies and individuals, for that matter, to set goals. And it was conceived over 40 years ago at Intel by Andy Grove, invented by the legendary Andy Grove at Intel, and it kind of evolved over the years. And about 8 years ago or so, it was repopularized into the mainstream by John Doerr in a book called Measure What Matters. And Measure What Matters, John Doerr said, look, Google uses OKRs and Bono uses OKRs. And don't you want to be like Google and like Bono? So you should change your goal setting framework. And so many, many, many companies, in fact, I would say the majority of organizations that I've come across in the last few years are using objectives and key results as their goal setting framework. So that's sort of the very brief history of it and the definition of at least the acronym. The way that we define OKRs in the book is that every time you set a goal for your team, for any team within your organization, you have these 2 halves. You have the objective and the key result. The objective is a qualitative future state that you would like to create for your customers. So something like the easiest way to shop for mattresses online. Right. Something along those lines. Qualitative, it's aspirational, it's inspirational. It doesn't talk about how you're going to do it. It just talks about the future state you would like to create for your customers. So that's the objective side. On the key results side, the key results answer the question, how will we know that we've achieved that qualitative state? And so the key results are the quantitative side of the conversation. They are metrics, and they are aggressive metrics. And most importantly, and the thing that makes our book so unique and opinionated is that your key results must be measures of human behavior, what we call outcomes. And so what you'll notice missing completely from that goal, whether it's the objective or the key result or together, is that we don't talk about what we're going to make or do. We talk about the future state we'd like to create, and the behavior change we expect to see in our customers when we create that state.
Yeah. You're bringing back memories for me because at Xerox, and this is what I'm talking about in the 80s now, I used to teach their quality improvement program. And we would study problem solving. And we had to create an as-is and a desired state, and sort of lay down. And the as-is was important too, because a lot of people wouldn't get a clear definition of really where they were. They were so focused on, ironically, what you're sort of working around, which is they just wanted to talk solution,
Yes,
right?
exactly.
And they never really could prove the problem even existed sometimes. But I'm connecting through sort of bringing me back to those problem solving days.
That's exactly right. It's spot on. Like what's the current state of things, right? What's the
Hmm.
as is, right? We've got this online mattress store and people show up, but they don't buy. Okay, great.
Right.
What's the future state? The future state would be like, we'd like this to be the easiest way for them to shop for mattresses. Great. How do we know that it's
Right.
the easiest? Well, they're showing up and they are looking at 12 different mattresses on average, and then they're ultimately asking questions. Whatever it is, right? We're looking for the outcomes, the behaviors that indicate that we've delivered something of value. And the fundamentally different thing about this, and you said people, when you worked at Xerox, that folks were fixated on solutions, that hasn't changed, right?
Right.
People
Right.
today, every day, everywhere are fixated on solutions because it's easy, right?
Yeah.
It's binary, right? Like,
Right.
hey, I need you to make a pen. Okay, there it is. I
Right.
did it. Did I do a good job, boss? Did I get a raise? Right. Hey, I need you to help people write more successful.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah. And,
completely
and they see it, by the way,
conversation.
Jeff, they'll see that pen that isn't writing and they'll go, well, we just need better ink.
Right,
They're not
right, right,
taking
right.
in consideration the temperature, the conditions of the room, the who's operating it. And they get so fixated. And it's one of the reasons why, we always found that we ended up chasing the wrong problem.
Yeah,
And so when we got to that solution that we were obsessing on, moments later, we start scratching our head going, why isn't this working? All broke
yeah,
down in the beginning.
right. And so that's exactly right. We don't question the problem
Right.
that we're solving. When we fixate on making a thing, we call that output, like making output, because it can be anything, right? It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be a policy, it could be a campaign, right? Anything that you produce is an output. And when we fixate on that, we're not really thinking about the problem, and we're not really thinking about how we will know we've done a good job other than to deliver it,
Yeah.
right? And when you start working with our OKR approach, the interesting thing, and this is the real mindset sort of shift, and the thing that's difficult for a lot of folks to grasp initially, obviously it's not that hard, but is that the product, the output becomes the variable, right? If the measure of success is to change a customer's behavior, and you try with one product, one output, and it didn't do it, then you got to try with something else. And if that doesn't do it, you try with a third thing and a fourth thing. So it's the product that becomes the variable rather than, the goal itself, right? The goal is the behavior change.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you a kooky question, but I promise I'll connect it. Do you conduct workshops on this? I know you've got a book. Are there workshops that support it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm calling it kooky is because here comes 1B in terms of the question. Do you have any types of simulations that you're running within the workshops? And I'll tell you why in a second, but anything we just say, okay, let's do this now.
Yeah.
Do you run them through a simulation of sort?
100%. So the example, it's actually mattress store. We just don't do a digital version of it. We do
I
a
thought you were
brick
doing the
and
mattress
mortar.
store for me because I told you I had a sales audience. You really do
Right.
work with the mattress. Okay, keep going.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. So we do mattress store, right? So we take whoever's in the room and we say, look, forget about your current jobs. You're the owners of a mattress store, right?
Right.
What are the high level measures of the success of your mattress store? And people get it. They're like, okay, it's sales, it's revenue, it's profit margin, it's customer satisfaction, it's that kind of stuff. Cool. What observable behaviors can you see in your mattress store that function as leading indicators to those high level metrics of the success of your business? And they'll say things like people coming to the store, people lying down on a mattress, people lying down on more than one mattress, people coming into the store with their partner, because you shouldn't buy a mattress if you sleep next to somebody every night. They should come with you.
Right.
People asking questions about removal and delivery and that type of thing. You're looking for those types of behaviors, right? Cool. Third question we ask, what could you do to your mattress store to drive those behaviors? And they'll say things like have a really well-trained sales force, have a beautiful storefront, have a guy outside spinning a sign and directing people inside, make the atmosphere really calm and pleasant inside, put down, shoe protectors and pillow protectors so people feel comfortable lying down, all that kind of stuff, right? And that's great. And they say, great. The stuff that you just described, That's output, the design of the store, the training of the staff, the quantity and quality of inventory that you carry, your pricing, all of that. That's output. Those are features of your store. All of those things are designed to drive behavior, to get people into the store with their partners, trying mattresses, asking questions, and buying a mattress. If those things do not drive that behavior, those things didn't work. Right? So maybe a nice calm atmosphere isn't what you need, right? Maybe you need a loud atmosphere. Maybe having 50 different mattresses gives people analysis paralysis and they want 5 choices rather than 50. I'll tell you a funny story. I did this exercise once with a group of Norwegian design students. And they're brilliant. They were brilliant. And they said, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all the mattress information and we're going to put it on the ceiling above each mattress. Right? So the only way that you can read about the mattress is to lie down on it. I love that idea.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
And
right?
you know something, Jeff? I love the idea. It's right above our nose, and yet you ask yourself, why didn't I think of that? Right?
Yeah.
And now we come back to a book like yours, right? That says, well, what process did you follow to try and, analyze this situation?
And look, and as brilliant as an idea as that is, right? It might just work, right? Because people are going to lie down and be like, oh, there's the mattress information. Or they may never look up. And then they're going to bug you all day and your sales staff. Hey, what is this mattress? How much does it cost? What are the features of it? That type of thing. So as brilliant as that idea is, if it doesn't get people to come into the store, lie down on multiple mattresses, ask the right questions, and buy a mattress, even a cool idea like that, it didn't work. And you got to try something else.
Yeah. I love the fact that you're running simulations. I wish more trainers and those that conduct workshops would understand the value of that, because the conversation we're having it's an interesting conversation. But when you apply that in a workshop and typically in a simulation, you let a group go in your direction, go where you think you need to go. But we'll make it as real world as possible. And then you apply process, and then you see how that changes. That changes a human behavior. That changes a culture of an organization. When we preach to them, it's almost going against what your book even is about. When we preach a solution in a workshop, frequently have students that really don't even know if it's pertaining to them. I kind of do that. Well, let's simulate it and see if you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the mindset shift is that executing the plan or producing the product is just not enough anymore, right? It's just not enough. It's the beginning of the conversation with your target audience, right? And how they react to the thing that you put into their hands actually tells you whether you've built something of value that solves a real problem for them.
Yeah. All right. So take us through the creation process of an OKR. How does a team work through something like that?
Sure,
I'm sold. Just tell me how we do it now. I
So-
want the solution. Oops. No.
Look, ideally, we anchor OKRs in strategy, right?
Okay.
So ideally, your organization has a clearly articulated and well understood strategy for the next 12 to 24 months. Not all organizations do, and sometimes it's not clearly articulated, but and you can do OKRs without it, but if you want to do them well, there needs to be a strategic direction for the company. That's number one. Right. The next thing that we want to do is we want to set organizational OKRs. So our objective is to achieve the strategy, and our key results are going to be these high-level metrics, right? So there's going to be things like those KPIs we talked about: sales, revenue, profit, customer satisfaction, retention rate. Then what we're going to ask each team in the organization to do is to say, look, I need you to write an OKR for your sphere of influence. Right. So whatever it is that you have control over, and how are you going to optimize that piece of the customer journey or the operations of the company so that it functions as a leading indicator of the strategic goals of the company? So that was a little abstract. So let me give you an example. Okay. Let's assume you're working on a digital product or service, and you are on a team whose responsibility is authentication. Right? Your job is to make sure that people have a username and a password, and they know it, and they can retrieve it, and they don't have to call anybody. Can just sign in as easily as possible so that they can use your digital service. Okay. I'm in charge of the authentication team, right? I am going to write an objective that is within my sphere of influence, which is authentication, right? So it's going to be something like create the simplest way for people to sign on in the e-commerce space by the end of the year, right? Something like that. And my key results are going to be things like a 90% reduction in the number of password reset requests, right? 75% reduction in support costs related to authentication. Things like that. Those are going to be my metrics for success. Now, what I've done there is I've written a goal that my team can achieve, right? So without any dependencies beyond the authentication team. And what I can do is I can tell a compelling story about that goal and how it connects to the organizational goal. So if we do this authentication bit really, really well, we're going to reduce costs. That's going to drive up profit margins, right? And we're going to have happier customers. We're going to be authenticating easily and not complaining about us. So satisfaction goes up, retention goes up, profit goes up, costs go down. That's the story that I'm telling you. And we have every company, every team or group of teams or department come up with these team level goals that function as leading indicators. And then we meet in the middle and we have a conversation. We say, look, as the authentication team leader, this is what I think we should do and why. And then my bosses will say, okay, that makes sense. Maybe this doesn't make sense. There's some duplication between what you're doing and that team over there. So we'll reconcile that. But the idea is to meet in the middle and to let the teams decide what their goals are. Folks are a lot more passionate about achieving the goals they set for themselves than ones that you gave to them. And I'll say one more quick thing because it's really, really important. Many organizations feel like that's a lot of work, what I just described. And it can be. It doesn't have to be. Depends on the size of the organization, but you can get through this relatively quickly after a couple of tries. And so what they'll do is, because it feels like a hassle, is they'll toss out everything, that whole process that I just described, and they'll say, everyone's got a revenue goal, right? Like revenue is everyone's goal. Mm-hmm. Right? We're trying to increase revenue by 25% in the next fiscal year. That's everybody's goal. I work on the authentication team. Right? Like I am 4, 5, 6 steps away from revenue, right? Nothing I do directly contributes to revenue, right? What I do is I make sure people can get into the system. Everything after that is not my responsibility. And revenue is still like way downstream from me. And so it's a real risk to toss out this process and just say everyone does revenue because people just won't have anything to truly target or focus on.
Yeah. Let me see if I got this right. So I'm going to sort of put it in Jala's language, which means I can get it wrong. So help me out. But, when I do training, for instance, I teach somebody how to create an objective. And they're fixated at the end of their presentation. Did they achieve the objective? I'm fixated on, could they measure whether they could answer the question? Did you achieve the objective? I don't really care whether I said 8 people would get this right. Only 4 did. Yeah. I'm giving you an A+ because you can answer the question. Did you meet your objective? No, I did not. I was 4 people short. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I think, and again, I've left Xerox 31 years ago. I can't get those blue X's out of my blood. They really focused on measuring the process and not the results. Because everybody wanted to focus. Well, did we, improve customer retention by X amount? No, let's focus on the process. Were we able to, follow our process? Because ultimately, we're going to win. So we really weren't, and that takes guts, particularly in the sales world, where what's the goal? 22% increase in territory. Okay, but a Xerox, for instance, back then would say, yes. That's what we call a terminal goal. That's a long-term goal. But we want to measure whether, we're adhering to ABC, the sales process we're following, the techniques we're using. Because if we can do that, we'll get to 22%.
Right.
Am I close?
You are. And there's an implicit sort of secret that organizations discover when they implement OKRs with a customer-centric approach like we advocate for in the book, is that when you set a goal, to your point, when you set a goal and the goal does not include an output, right, the production of something, the team has to go out into the world and discover. Discover means research, experiment, design, right? All of those words kind of mean roughly the same thing in this context. The best solution to achieve the behavior change. And so they've got to build a bit of humility into their work, right? Because it's not like build a thing, okay, we build it and we're done. I'm going to try this approach. I'm going to try putting mattress information on the ceiling, right? Did it get people to lie down? It didn't. Okay, great. What did we learn from that? We learned that people don't tend to look up. Okay, great. Let's try something else. Use that learning and try the next experiment. And so there is, you start to build a culture of learning in your company,
Right.
when you use goals. Humility, which is massively powerful. Right? Humility isn't the abdication of leadership. Humility is simply having strong opinions and being willing to let them go in the face of contradictory evidence, right? And you're building a culture that appreciates the customer, that has empathy for the people that we serve, which again tends to build better products in the end, right? And that all comes out of doing the process
Yeah.
rather than delivering a specific thing.
Yeah. I think it's interesting. You said, letting go of an idea, and you're tying humility to that. I actually can't think of a better word for it. I've just never tied that word to it. Do you believe that we actually changed? Again, this is, the metamorphosis of a corporation. We had to basically define what that humility you're talking about meant, because in our training manuals, et cetera, when we were brainstorming whatever and your idea and get through, the mantra used to be, well, look, Jeff, can you live with it? And when it didn't work, all the Jeffs in the world went, I told you that wouldn't work.
Right.
And so we actually were methodical about changing the language to, can you support it? And that was our new mantra, meaning we're in this as a team. This is our decision. If you can't support it, and sometimes, if you've got information that this could be detrimental to the corporation, you're supposed to speak up.
Right.
But is it just you don't want tuna sandwiches? You like ham sandwiches better? This isn't going to change the corporation. So we want you to support it, not live with it. But we were really fighting that line because we couldn't. That humility you speak of was not instinctive. Let's just put it that way.
Absolutely. And look, and this is why we talk about OKRs being a goal-setting framework for teams.
Right.
So you take a cross-functional team, and you can define team any way that you like, but at the very least, we push for the teams to be cross-functional so that all the folks who are involved in the making of the thing are working on the thing together at the same time. Because what that does is it gets us away from, well, the engineers did their job. Like, I'm an engineer. I did my job. I'm sorry the design was terrible, but I did my job. Right. Or the sales guys really screwed this up, but we designed and built a great product. Right. There's none of that. Right. We win or lose together as a team. So we have to understand how to help each other, what each other does, where our strengths and weaknesses are. And there has to be that realization that says, I know we built a great product here, but we are unsuccessful in selling into the market, and we have to figure out why. We may have to adjust the product. Right. And again, that's where that humility kicks in. Again, humility simply, like the shortest way to say it is strong opinions, loosely held. All of us have experience. All of us have expertise. All of us want to be successful. And we all have great ideas about how to get there. But in the face of contradictory evidence, right? We put signs on the ceiling and no one saw them, right? Our amazing idea didn't work, and we have to learn from it, let it go, and move on. And that's how organizations grow. And honestly, that's how companies react to the incredible pace of change that they're facing in the markets today.
Yeah. And I don't want to bury that line you just said. That really resonated with me. Strong opinions, loosely held. Something tells me you've said that before. But I could see that one on a book cover, on a tagline under a title. That's a very strong statement and really visual to me. Okay. Let's get the trainer in me is coming out. And what I see you saying is, this, we're not throwing out an idea or two, but really almost involved in a cultural change of an organization to embrace this. So let's talk implementation. That's where we trainers need to go. And if we don't, we're not in the training business for long. I love the principles. How do you give me a strategy or two to implement something like this?
Yeah. So this is an onion, right? You start to put this in and you peel it back. And at first you're like, oh, it's outcomes over output. That seems easy, right? Measure human behavior. That's no big deal there. As soon as you start to implement it, you realize that this actually starts to impact the whole organization. So it's about how we work. It's about the kind of work that we do. It's about job descriptions and incentives and performance management criteria and career paths. And so like it really starts to mushroom pretty quickly. So the change can be huge and scary. And so then your question is perfect. Where do we start? The way that we start is we start small. We de-risk the change. Okay? And so instead of saying, regardless of how big your organization is, let's say you're running a 5,000 person organization, 10,000 person organization. We're not going to start with 5,000 people or 10,000 people. We're going to start with 5 or 10 people. And we're going to pick the 5 or 10 people who are most likely to succeed at this. That's not stacking the deck. That's basically saying if these folks can't get it, we've got a bigger problem, right? And so we're going to take the 5 to 10 folks that we think are most likely to succeed in this, and we're going to give them a time box, a quarter. A quarter is perfect, right? Because it's just enough to try to get something done, but not too long to do too much damage. And we're going to give them an assignment that is strategic enough for people to pay attention to and to care about, but not so strategic that if they mess it up, we damage the company irreparably. And then we say, okay, great. You folks are on this initiative. Let's define some OKRs. Let's define some success criteria for this way of working. And now you're going to go and you're going to start working this small pilot team. It's an experiment. There's a couple things to consider in doing this. Number one, you cannot have this team start, disappear for 12 weeks, and then reappear at the end of week 12 and just go, ta-da, it worked, right? Like it's not going to happen. The thing that this team has to be is radically transparent. So you're going to put them in the center of the office or somewhere where everybody's aware of what they're doing. They're going to proactively share back to the organization what they're doing, what they're learning, where they're failing, how they're changing what they're doing, how they're progressing towards their OKRs. And at the end of that 12-week period, then we assess not only their progress towards their OKRs, but how their ways of working changed. Where was it easy? Where was it difficult? Where did the organization really throw up a bunch of roadblocks that we're going to have to overcome? And if we agree as a company that this worked well, then we scale up to a second pilot team or a third. And if that goes well for the next quarter, we go from 3 to 10 and 10 to 25 and 25 to 50 and so forth. So we're going to scale gradually because the problems will scale with us. But if we can knock out the tactical stuff as we grow, we stand a greater chance for success. And the smaller experiments give us evidence to justify broader investment in the framework and greater scale across the organization.
You know, I'll throw up another piece at you that, and I'm kind of going back to my Xerox days again,
Yep.
but it was invaluable. We were in the first 4 or 5 days of employment at Xerox. You were going through this program of basically how to quality improve and problem solve and learn some processes to help improve the company. But one of the things we did, Jeff, curious of your thoughts on this, was we realized that this was going to require some meetings. This was going to require teams working together. And so we actually put in part of the program, not only how to run a meeting, but something I've never seen before to this day, which was the roles that we play in a meeting. In other words, okay, Jeff's the leader and Rob is a timekeeper. And we took time. How many meetings go south because we still on, the first issue, we have 5 things to do in this meeting and we're 40 minutes into it. Timekeepers, process guides, making sure that we're bringing in people and shutting out those that are talking maybe a little too much, learning how to disagree, learning how to support and build on an idea. These aren't instinctive behaviors, but I'm telling you this because we knew the task was large and we knew people, we wanted to empower them and equip them with, how to basically behave so they could work in these teams. Yeah. And I thought that was a really interesting combination. I've never really seen it repeated.
So look, that's amazing. And there are a couple of books in the last decade or so that are really fantastic on meeting design and roles and running great meetings. In our book, we talk about the types of meetings you need to have and the types of conversations. We even provide the prompts for that. But to really, have effective meetings, you need a little bit of a structure, right? You need some kind of like to your point, guidelines, roles, timekeepers. All that stuff is massively powerful, and very few. I've rarely worked in an organization where that's been very clear and obvious to people. I think it's a whole lot of like, well, we're in a meeting, let's try to figure it out. So I think it's super powerful.
Yeah. And I'll leave it, but I'll tell you the one role that stuck with me above all else that I'd never heard of before. It was a role called a process guide. So let's say you're the leader. Jeff, just lead, man. Just go. But leaders can sometimes step on a little information. They can be a little bit too aggressive, maybe. And so a process guide's doing nothing more than saying, wait, we didn't reach consensus on that yet.
Right.
And slows us down, speeds us up. We haven't, timekeeper, we're supposed to cue in every 10 minutes. I haven't heard from it. They are actually less focused on the results of the meeting and more focused on bringing in, shutting up. And that was truly unique. That and the roles switched, but we'll jump off that. I will tell you that one of the techniques that was used, because there we were, this is the 80s. We're actually trying to implement quality that the Japanese had been implementing very successfully. And two things that we also paid attention to. One, that training came from the top down, not the bottom up.
Right.
All right. Is that something you keep an eye on when you're working with an organization, or is that part of the conversation of is senior management buying into this? Going to support it?
It has to be. This is goal setting, and you can't have departments and teams having different types of goals.
Perfect.
This has to come top down, and it has to come top down with why. So if we kind of quote the Simon Sinek book, Start with Why, the most successful organizations that implement any kind of process change, but we're going to talk about OKRs today, right? Start with why. Like, why are we doing this? Right. Today, the as is and the to be again, right? Today we work in this way. And because we work in this way, we have these challenges, right? In the future, we hope to have these benefits, right? And so the system that we're going to put in the middle is going to be called OKRs. And our hope for OKRs is that it'll get us from our current state to the future state. And that's how we'll know it's been successful. And until we get to that future state, we're not done and we haven't seen success. Yeah, It's absolutely crucial. Top down with the why behind it is super powerful.
Yeah. Well, when we in sales sometimes refer to it, that why is the WIFM, WIFM. What's in it for me? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, but I think it's important.
Exactly.
Right?
It's we're not doing this because we couldn't think of anything to do today. This is going to benefit the company this way, which will benefit the employees who work for the company this way, which will ultimately benefit you personally this way. That's a hell of a, excuse me, I don't typically curse on my podcast. That's a heck of a why. Okay. Yeah. But sometimes we need to help them define that. And at least in my community, that sales community, we're very familiar with WIFMs because most customers won't have a conversation with us if we don't lead with what's in it for them. And I appreciate that. I want that customer to ask that question. Imagine, Jeff, if that wasn't even important to them. And why are we doing it?
Right. Why are we here?
Right. All right, my man, we're coming down the home stretch. Any mentors in your world that help shape this? Because it's a fascinating book. It really is. And concept.
Absolutely. I mean, look, Measure What Matters is sort of the book that every CEO has on their desk. And it's an inspirational book, right? By John Doerr. It sort of sets that lofty target in front of you without a whole lot of implementation detail. One of the better practical books that came ahead of us was a book called Radical Focus by a woman named Christina Whitkey. It's a fantastic book. She's a fantastic instructor. She teaches at Stanford these days. She's worked all over Silicon Valley, and she really gets this stuff. And has been a huge inspiration for us in this as well. And we're sort of standing on the shoulders of those two folks to really try to bring this conversation even further into the mainstream, and frankly, at scale as well, which is really interesting to us.
Yeah. You take that humility piece very seriously, I can tell. That was very humbly said. He's Jeff Godhelp, and his book, which we want you to get and we want you to read and we want you to write a review on, is called Who Does What by How Much? A Practical Guide to Customer-Centric OKRs. And now you all know what an OKR is, and you know what's in it for you to pay attention to these OKRs. How do people get a hold of you, Jeff?
The easiest way is either LinkedIn, connect with me there, or jeffgothealth.com. Super easy. Those two places are the best places to find me.
That sounds great. And his, just so you know how to spell his name, it's JEFFGOTHELF.com. Listen, I really appreciate the conversation. Loved having you on the show. You took me back to my Xerox days. And the funny thing is, these ideas really hold up. In other words, most companies, it's almost like the flavor of the month. They begin to move away and they rename, process reengineering. We'll give it a whole lot of different names, but we got to pay attention to this. And I love the fact that you're not only paying attention to it, you've got workshops that support it. He's got simulations, which will help with that cultural change we talked about. And that's the full package. So in any case, really appreciated having you on the show today. And thanks so much for sharing your information with us.
My pleasure, Rob. Thanks so much for having me. This was great.
Perfect. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.